Zekthari sat in the dim blue light of the observation deck, watching the stars through the massive window. 4 arms moved across multiple data screens, analyzing battle reports from across the galaxy. For 30 years, Zekthari had studied how different species fought wars. The insectoid analyst had seen everything. The Krillian warriors used brute force and heavy weapons. They charged straight ahead, relying on thick armor and plasma cannons. Simple but effective, the Nexari fought in perfect formations, each soldier knowing exactly where to stand and when to move. Their battles looked like deadly dances. The Saurian collective used hit-and-run attacks, striking fast and disappearing before enemies could respond. Every species had patterns. Every race fought according to what evolution gave them. Big creatures used strength, fast ones used speed, smart ones used technology. Flying species attacked from above. Underground dwellers used tunnels and surprise. Zekthari understood all of this. War made sense when you knew the rules. The analyst touched a control with one of the upper arms while the lower ones continued working. Another battle report appeared on screen. This one showed Corvan troops destroying a small rebel base. The reptilian soldiers moved in perfect lines, their natural armor deflecting enemy fire. Their tactics never changed because they never needed to change. That was how war worked in the galaxy. Each species found what worked best for them and stuck with it. Millions of years of evolution created the perfect fighting style for each race. Why change something that already worked? A soft chime interrupted Zekthari's thoughts. A new assignment notification appeared on the main screen. The analyst opened it with mild curiosity. New species discovered. Combat assessment required. Species designation, human, origin. Sol system, 3rd planet. Zekthari's compound eyes focused on the basic information. Another new species meant another routine report. The galaxy seemed full of them lately. Most were weak civilizations that barely understood space travel. A few became useful allies. Even fewer posed any real threat. The preliminary data on humans looked typical. They came from a medium-sized planet with normal gravity. Their star was nothing special. The planet had water and oxygen, supporting carbon-based life. Very common setup. Zekthari pulled up the biological scans. The images showed bipedal creatures standing about 6 feet tall. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and soft skin with no natural armor. No claws worth mentioning. No fangs, no poison glands. Their muscles looked average compared to most species. Weak. Zekthari muttered in the clicking language of the Veltar. The humans had poor night vision compared to most galactic species. Their hearing was limited. They could not smell as well as hunters or track as well as predators. They had no telepathic abilities and no natural weapons beyond basic teeth and soft fingernails. Zekthari scrolled through more data. Human technology looked primitive by galactic standards. They had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. Their weapons used chemical explosives and simple energy beams. Nothing impressive. Their ships were basic metal constructions with minimal shielding. The analyst began typing the standard report. Species shows minimal threat potential. Recommend classification, low priority monitoring. But something made Zekthari pause. A small note in the data mentioned that humans had survived multiple extinction events on their home planet. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, massive volcanic eruptions, and plague outbreaks had all failed to wipe them out. That was unusual, but not unique. Many species survived difficult conditions. It usually meant they were stubborn or lucky. Zekthari continued reading. Humans had fought thousands of wars among themselves throughout their history. They used everything from rocks and sticks to nuclear weapons. They fought on land, sea, air, and space. They fought in deserts, jungles, mountains, and ice fields. The analyst felt a slight unease. Most species developed 1 or 2 preferred fighting styles based on their home environment and physical traits. Humans seemed to fight everywhere, using everything. Another detail caught attention. Humans had no unified government. Hundreds of separate nations existed on their planet, each with different languages, cultures, and military doctrines. Yet they had somehow achieved space travel and begun exploring other systems. Zekthari had never seen that before. Every other spacefaring species had unified their planet before reaching for the stars. How could a divided species develop advanced technology? The analyst dug deeper into the historical records. Human warfare showed constant change and adaptation. Ancient humans threw spears and shot arrows. Medieval humans used swords and armor. Industrial humans built tanks and airplanes. Modern humans created guided missiles and laser weapons, but it was not just the technology that changed. Human tactics evolved constantly. They learned from every battle and adjusted their methods. No two human wars looked exactly the same. Sekthari felt confused. Evolution was supposed to create stable patterns. Species found successful strategies and kept using them. Change was supposed to be slow, taking thousands of years. Humans seemed to change their entire approach to warfare every few generations. The analyst pulled up combat footage from human conflicts. The images showed human soldiers doing impossible things. They fought in conditions that should have killed them. They used broken equipment to defeat superior enemies. They won battles while outnumbered 10 to 1. In one recording, human soldiers trapped in a building used furniture and kitchen supplies to build defensive positions. They held off an army for 3 days using improvised weapons and sheer determination. Another clip showed human pilots ramming their damaged aircraft into enemy positions rather than retreating. They sacrificed themselves to complete their missions. Sekthari watched humans fight in space, underwater, underground, and in toxic atmospheres. They adapted to every environment and found ways to turn disadvantages into advantages. The analyst's mandibles clicked nervously. This was not normal behavior for any species. Most creatures had survival instincts that prevented suicidal attacks. Self-preservation was supposed to be the strongest biological drive. Humans seemed to ignore self-preservation when something else was more important to them. They died for ideas for other humans, for abstract concepts like freedom and honor. No other species did that. Sekthari tried to find patterns in human warfare, but every time one appeared, the humans changed again. They never used the same tactic twice if they could avoid it. They constantly experimented with new approaches. The analyst began to realize this was not going to be a routine report. These humans were different from any species in the galactic database. They did not fit any known patterns. A new message appeared on the screen. Intelligence reports indicated that a human ship had just crossed into contested space near the Corvan Empire. The vessel appeared to be on an exploration mission. Sekthari felt a chill despite the warm air in the observation deck. The Corvans were one of the most aggressive species in the galaxy. They attacked anything that entered their territory without permission. A single human ship would not survive contact with a Corvan patrol. The analyst quickly accessed the long-range sensors. Sure enough, a human vessel was moving through space controlled by Admiral Thekfor, the most brutal Corvan commander. Thekfor never showed mercy to trespassers. Sekthari opened a communication channel to request permission to observe the coming encounter. This would be a perfect chance to see how humans really fought when faced with impossible odds. The analyst had studied warfare for decades but had never felt nervous about watching a battle before. Something about these humans was different, something that made Sekthari wonder if the galaxy was about to learn what real terror looked like. Admiral Thekfor's massive form filled the command chair of his flagship. The Corvan leader stood 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plates that had deflected countless weapons. Scars crossed his reptilian face, each one a mark of honor earned in battle. The human ship appeared on his screens like a gift from the war gods. Small, primitive, and alone in Corvan space, Thekfor's lips pulled back in a predatory grin, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Destroy it," he ordered his tactical officer. "Admiral, should we demand surrender first?" the officer asked. Thekfor slammed a clawed fist on his armrest. "Honor is earned through combat, not mercy. Send 12 destroyers. Make it quick." Sekthari watched the Corvan fleet move toward the human vessel from the monitoring station. The analyst had seen this scenario play out hundreds of times. A small ship wandering into hostile territory never survived. The mathematics were simple. 12 destroyers versus 1 exploration vessel meant certain death for the humans. The human ship was called the UES Endeavor. It carried 47 crew members on a peaceful survey mission. Sekthari had accessed their communication logs. They were scientists, engineers, and explorers. None of them were trained soldiers. The Corvan destroyers carried 200 elite shock troops. Each warrior had trained for decades in close combat. Their natural armor could stop most small weapons. Their claws could tear through metal. They lived for battle and died with honor. Sekthari expected the encounter to last minutes. The humans would either surrender immediately or die fighting bravely but uselessly. Either way, the analyst would have basic combat data to add to the report. The Corvan ship surrounded the human vessel. Admiral Thekvor opened a communication channel. Human ship, you have violated Corvan territory. Prepare to be destroyed. The response came in clear galactic standard. This is Captain Sarah Mitchell of the UES Endeavour. We were not aware this was claimed space. We request safe passage to continue our mission. Thekvor laughed, a sound like grinding stone. There is no safe passage. There is only glorious battle. Fight well and die with honor. Zekathari watched the tactical display as the Corvan ships powered up their weapons. Plasma cannons charged to full power. Missile tubes loaded with armor-piercing warheads. The humans had seconds to live. Then something impossible happened. The human ship suddenly accelerated directly toward the nearest Corvan destroyer. Zekathari blinked in confusion. Running away might give them a few extra minutes of life, but charging into the enemy made no sense. The Endeavour's engines flared bright blue as the humans pushed their reactor beyond safe limits. Warning alarms should have been screaming on their bridge, but they kept accelerating. Ramming attack, Zekathari whispered. But ramming was a last resort used by desperate crews with nothing left to lose. Why would the humans try it as an opening move? The Corvan destroyer tried to avoid the collision, but the human ship adjusted course with impossible precision. The Endeavour slammed into the destroyer's side at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of flame and twisted metal. Zekathari stared at the sensors in shock. The humans had just sacrificed their entire crew to destroy one enemy ship. No species did that. Self-preservation was supposed to override everything else. But the tactical display showed something even more disturbing. The explosion had been perfectly positioned. Debris from both ships scattered in a pattern that damaged two other Corvan destroyers. The humans had calculated the exact angle and speed needed to maximize damage to the enemy fleet. This was not a desperate suicide attack. This was planned, Admiral Thekvor roared in rage. How did they escape? Scan for survivors! His tactical officer's voice shook with confusion. Admiral, the human ship was destroyed. No survivors possible. Then how are our engines failing? Zekathari checked the long-range sensors. 3 Corvan ships were losing power. Their engines were shutting down one by one. The humans should all be dead, but somehow their attack was still working. The analyst pulled up detailed scans of the explosion. Hidden among the debris were small objects moving under their own power. The humans had launched something just before impact. Maintenance drones, Zekathari realized. The humans had reprogrammed their repair robots and launched them during the ramming attack. The drones were now attached to Corvan hulls, cutting through armor and destroying critical systems. No one fought like this. No species used maintenance equipment as weapons. No crew sacrificed themselves in the opening seconds of battle. Admiral Thekvor ordered his remaining ships to board the damaged destroyers and remove the human devices. Corvan warriors in full battle armor crossed between ships on magnetic cables. Zekathari watched 200 elite soldiers hunt for a handful of small robots. The mighty Corvan military was being defeated by repair drones operated by dead humans. But the drones were not just cutting randomly. They moved with purpose, targeting specific systems. Life support, navigation, weapons control, communications. Someone had programmed them with detailed knowledge of Corvan ship design. How did humans know about Corvan technology? Their species had never encountered each other before. The answer came when Zekathari reviewed the last few minutes of human communications. In the seconds before ramming, the Endeavour had scanned every Corvan ship with powerful sensors. Their computers had analyzed the data and identified weak points. The humans had learned everything they needed to know about their enemies and adapted their attack plan in real time. From first contact to ramming had taken less than 5 minutes. In that time, they had figured out how to hurt ships they had never seen before. Admiral Thekvor's flagship lost main power as human drones severed key cables. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across the command bridge. The Admiral's roar of frustration echoed through the ship. All warriors to the engine room. Find those machines and destroy them. Corvan soldiers rushed through darkened corridors hunting for tiny robots. But the drones had already moved to new targets. They scattered throughout the ships like a virus impossible to track or stop. Zekathari realized the humans had turned 47 deaths into a victory against 200 enemies. They had used their own destruction as a weapon. They had sacrificed everything to complete a mission that was supposed to be peaceful exploration. The analyst's hands shook as multiple Corvan ships went dark. The mighty fleet that should have won in minutes was being torn apart by dead humans and their machines. This was not how war worked. species were supposed to fight according to their nature. They used their natural advantages and accepted their natural limitations. They did not turn weakness into strength or death into victory. Humans broke every rule. Zekthari had learned in 30 years of studying warfare. Admiral Thekvor's final transmission came through static and failing systems. Human ship destroyed. Mission accomplished. But his voice carried no pride, only confusion and fear. Zekthari knew the truth. The humans had lost 1 ship and 47 lives. The Corvins had lost 12 destroyers and suffered massive damage to their reputation. When news of this battle spread, other species would know that humans could not be dismissed as harmless primitives. The analyst began updating the report on human combat capabilities. The classification changed from minimal threat to requires further study. But even those words felt inadequate. How do you classify a species that turns suicide into strategy? How do you predict the behavior of creatures that sacrifice everything for abstract goals? Zekthari looked out at the stars and felt afraid. The galaxy had always made sense before. Every species had patterns and limits, but humans seemed to have no limits at all. And if the humans could do this much damage while dying, what could they do while living? News of the Endeavor's destruction spread through Corvin space within hours. Admiral Thekvor tried to present it as a glorious victory, but too many warriors had seen the truth. A single human ship had crippled an entire battle group. The Corvin High Command felt their honor questioned. Emperor Crixtal himself demanded answers. How had primitive aliens humiliated the galaxy's most feared military? Send the 7th Fleet, the Emperor ordered. 50 ships and 10,000 warriors. Destroy their homeworld and prove that Corvin's strength cannot be mocked. Zekthari received notice of the massive deployment through intelligence channels. The analyst felt sick watching the preparations. 50 Corvin warships represented enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. 10,000 elite soldiers could conquer most civilizations. The humans had 3 small warships and a few thousand military personnel. Every tactical computer in the galaxy predicted total human destruction within 6 hours. This would not be a battle. It would be genocide. Zekthari requested permission to observe the assault on the Sol system. The Veltar leadership approved, curious about this species that had caused such strange reactions in their enemies. The human homeworld called Earth looked beautiful from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, and green continents created a peaceful image. Orbital stations provided early warning systems and light defenses. Nothing that could stop a serious attack. Long-range sensors showed human military preparations. Their 3 warships took defensive positions near the planet. Ground-based missile systems powered up. Fighter squadrons launched from hidden bases. It looked like a hopeless defense. The humans were preparing to die protecting their world, but they had no chance of victory. Zekthari expected to witness the end of human civilization. Instead, the analyst watched something that defied every rule of warfare. The Corvin fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system in perfect battle formation. Emperor Crixtal himself led the assault from his flagship, eager to restore his people's honor. The massive ships advanced toward Earth like a wall of death. Human resistance began immediately, but not in any way Zekthari had ever seen. Civilian ships throughout the system suddenly changed course. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, and mining vessels all moved toward the Corvin fleet. The analysts thought they were fleeing until the first explosions began. A human freight ship rammed a Corvin cruiser at full speed. The impact destroyed both vessels, but the freighter had been carrying refined uranium ore. The explosion created an electromagnetic pulse that disabled 3 nearby enemy ships. Another civilian vessel approached a Corvin destroyer while broadcasting surrender signals. When the Corvins prepared to board, the ship's reactor overloaded. The blast tore through the destroyer's hull and killed hundreds of warriors. Zekthari watched in growing horror as human civilians turned themselves into weapons. These were not soldiers. They were miners, traders, and families. But they fought like veterans who had planned for this moment their entire lives. The Corvin advance slowed as Emperor Crixtal tried to understand what was happening. His ships were being destroyed by garbage haulers and passenger shuttles. Nothing in Corvin military doctrine prepared them for suicide attacks by non-combatants, but the humans were just getting started. Asteroid mining platforms throughout. The system began launching rocks toward the Corvin fleet. The stones moved slowly, easy to avoid or destroy. The Corvins ignored them as harmless debris, until the rocks started exploding. Each asteroid had been hollowed out and filled with fusion bombs. They looked like natural objects until they reached optimal range. Then they became the largest mines ever deployed in space. Corvin ships vanished in nuclear fire as hidden weapons struck from every direction. The Emperor's perfect battle formation collapsed into chaos as captains tried to avoid invisible threats. Zekthari realized the humans had turned their entire solar system into a trap. Every piece of space junk, every abandoned satellite, every seemingly innocent object had become part of their defense plan. The 3 human warships finally engaged the Corvin fleet directly. But they did not fight like any military Zekthari had studied. Instead of maintaining formation and trading long-range fire, they split up and attacked like wild animals. The first human ship, UES Defiance, charged straight into the enemy formation while broadcasting false surrender signals. When Corvin ships lowered their shields to accept the surrender, the Defiance launched every missile it carried at point-blank range. The second ship, UES Vengeance, used its own damaged hull as a weapon. Half the vessel had been destroyed by enemy fire, but the crew kept fighting from the remaining sections. They rammed damaged Corvin ships and used boarding pods to attack from inside. The third ship, UES Retribution, disappeared entirely from sensors. Zekthari thought it had been destroyed until Corvin ships began exploding from within. The humans had somehow infiltrated enemy vessels and were sabotaging them from inside. Emperor Krixtal's flagship shuddered under attack from weapons that should not exist. Human fighters swarmed around the massive vessel like insects, too small and fast for defensive guns to target. But these fighters carried nuclear warheads designed for destroying asteroids. The insects stung like dragons. Zekthari watched the impossible unfold. The Corvin 7th Fleet, the most powerful military force in their empire, was being torn apart by a handful of human ships and converted civilian vessels. But it was not just the tactics that terrified the analyst. It was the coordination. Humans across the entire solar system fought as one organism. Mining platforms, cargo ships, military vessels, and even individual fighters all moved with perfect timing. They shared information instantly and adapted to changing conditions without any central command. No other species could coordinate like this. Most required telepathic links or rigid command structures. Humans seemed to improvise a battle plan involving millions of people in real time. Captain Sarah Chen's voice came through all communication channels as her fighter approached the Emperor's flagship. "This is for the Endeavor. Remember us." Her ship's reactor went critical just as she crashed into the Corvin command bridge. The explosion tore through the flagship's center and killed Emperor Krixtal instantly. The Corvin fleet collapsed without leadership. Ships fled in every direction, abandoning their mission and their honor. In 6 hours, the humans had not just survived. They had won a complete victory against impossible odds. Zekthari stared at the tactical display in numb shock. Debris from 50 Corvin warships drifted through space. Human casualties numbered in the thousands, but they had saved their world and destroyed the most feared military in the galaxy. The analyst began calculating the implications. If humans could do this to the Corvins, what would they do to other species? How could anyone fight enemies who turned everything into weapons and everyone into soldiers? A new message appeared on Zekthari's screen. 3 more galactic powers had declared their intention to test human capabilities. The Crystalline Hierarchs, the Psionic Dominion, and the Swarm Collective all wanted to see if the Corvin defeat was just luck. Zekthari felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. The galaxy was about to learn that the destruction of the 7th Fleet was not luck. It was just the beginning. The victory against the Corvins should have ended human involvement in galactic warfare. Most species would have celebrated their survival and avoided future conflicts. But humans were not like most species. Within weeks of the battle, human ships appeared throughout known space. Not warships, but exploration vessels, research stations, and diplomatic missions. They spread across the galaxy like seeds carried by cosmic winds. Zekthari watched this expansion with growing unease. The humans were not conquering territory or demanding tribute. Instead, they were learning. Every new system they visited taught them something about galactic civilization. The Crystalline Hierarchs were the first to test human resolve again. Their crystal-based technology relied on perfect harmonic frequencies to coordinate their fleets. Each ship resonated with others, creating a symphony of destruction that had conquered dozens of worlds. High Resonator Quilesh commanded the Hierarch's third harmony, 50 vessels that moved as one perfect instrument. The crystalline beings believed their coordination was unbreakable. No chaotic species like humans could disrupt their musical warfare. Tune the weapons to combat frequency, Quilesh sang to his fleet. Let us compose a requiem for these mammals. The hierarchs approached a human mining colony on the edge of crystalline space. The settlement had only a few hundred people and no military defenses. It should have been an easy target for demonstration. Zekthari observed from long range as the crystalline ships began their attack pattern. Beautiful harmonic tones filled space as the fleet moved in perfect synchronization. Each vessel knew exactly where to position itself for maximum effectiveness. The human response came without warning. Every piece of human equipment in the system began broadcasting radio signals. Mining drills, communication arrays, power generators, and even simple tools all transmitted at the same frequency. But they were not trying to communicate. They were making noise. The cacophony of random signals crashed into the crystalline harmony, like rocks thrown into a delicate instrument. The perfect resonance that held the hierarch's fleet together began to break apart. Quilesh's voice cracked with disbelief. Impossible. Our frequencies are protected by quantum encryption. But human computers had been analyzing crystalline transmissions for weeks. They had broken the encryption and identified the control frequencies. Now they were using that knowledge to turn the hierarch's greatest strength against them. Crystalline ships began firing on each other as confused signals sent targeting information to the wrong vessels. The perfect harmony became a discordant mess of friendly fire and communication failures. Within an hour, the third harmony had destroyed itself without the humans firing a single shot. Quilesh's flagship drifted powerless in space, its crystal matrices shattered by feedback from their own weapons. Zekthari documented the encounter with shaking hands. The humans had defeated advanced technology by understanding it better than its creators. They had turned the enemy's coordination into chaos. But that was only the beginning. The psionic dominion considered themselves the galaxy's mental masters. Their telepathic abilities allowed perfect coordination and the power to control other species' minds. Lord Kethran led a fleet of mind warriors who had never met a species they could not dominate. These humans have primitive brains, Kethran told his subordinates. Their thoughts will be like open books. We will make them destroy themselves for our amusement. The Dominion fleet approached a human research station orbiting a gas giant. 50 psionic warriors prepared to overwhelm the minds of 200 human scientists and engineers. The telepathic assault began at maximum range. Psionic forces crashed against human minds like waves against a shore. But instead of the expected collapse, something strange happened. The humans kept working. Kethran increased the mental pressure, pouring more power into the attack. His warriors joined their abilities to his, creating a psychic storm that should have driven any species to madness. The humans continued their research as if nothing was happening. Impossible, one of the psionic warriors gasped. They should be screaming in agony by now. Zekthari watched the readings from both fleets. The Dominion was expending enormous mental energy, enough to control an entire planet, but the humans showed no signs of distress or confusion. Then human communications revealed the truth. Psionic attack detected, came a calm voice from the research station. Activating neural shielding protocols. All personnel, please ensure your implants are functioning properly. The humans had been expecting this attack. They had studied psionic species and developed countermeasures. Tiny devices implanted in their brains generated interference patterns that blocked telepathic intrusion. But they had done more than just defend. They had prepared a counterattack. Human transmitters began broadcasting random thoughts and memories at the Dominion fleet. Chaotic mental noise flooded the telepathic network that connected the psionic warriors. Their shared consciousness became a storm of conflicting emotions and false memories. Lord Kethran screamed as his mind filled with human experiences. Memories of love, loss, hope, and determination crashed through his thoughts. The sheer intensity of human emotion overwhelmed his refined telepathic senses. The Dominion fleet retreated in panic, their warriors clutching their heads in pain. They had tried to invade human minds and found something too powerful and chaotic to control. Zekthari realized the humans had not just resisted the mental attack. They had turned their own thoughts into weapons. The diversity and intensity of human consciousness became a form of psychological warfare. The third test came from the Swarm Collective, a hive mind species that used billions of bioengineered creatures in combat. Queen Mother Vexith commanded an armada of living ships that could reproduce during battle, creating an endless supply of warriors. Numbers will triumph, Vexith declared through her swarm voice. Let the humans face the true meaning of overwhelming force. 1 billion war beasts descended on human settlements like a plague of destruction. Each creature was perfectly designed for killing, with claws, fangs, and natural armor. They reproduced rapidly and felt no fear or pain. The human response seemed hopeless at first. How could any species fight enemies that grew stronger during battle? But humans had studied the swarm's biology during previous encounters. They understood how the bioengineered creatures worked and had prepared accordingly. Human settlements released clouds of modified bacteria into the atmosphere. The microscopic organisms seemed harmless, but they carried genetic modifications that affected the swarm's reproductive cycle. Within hours, the war beasts began changing. Instead of producing more soldiers, they started creating different types of creatures. Some became docile and refused to fight. Others developed pack loyalty to human handlers instead of the Queen Mother. Most disturbing of all, some of the creatures began to think for themselves. Vexith felt her perfect control slipping as individuals emerged from her collective consciousness. War beasts started making independent decisions, forming alliances with humans and even turning against their own swarm. The humans had weaponized evolution itself. They had turned the swarm's greatest advantage into a weakness by introducing the concept of individual choice. Zekthari watched 3 of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, defeated by a species that should have been helpless. Each victory used different methods, but the pattern was becoming clear. Humans did not just adapt to new enemies. They understood them. They studied every weakness, learned every strength, and found ways to turn advantages into disadvantages. The analyst began receiving reports from across the galaxy. Other species were starting to approach humans not as enemies, but as potential allies. The word was spreading that these strange mammals were too dangerous to fight and too useful to ignore. Zekthari's own leadership sent a message requesting a full assessment of human military capabilities. The Veltar wanted to know if they should fear these newcomers or try to befriend them. The analyst stared at the data for hours, trying to find the right words. How do you explain a species that rewrites the rules of warfare with every battle? How do you classify creatures that turn their weaknesses into weapons? The truth was more terrifying than any military threat. Humans were not just another species joining galactic civilization. They were evolution in action, adapting and changing faster than anyone thought possible. Today they had defeated crystal harmonics, psionic attacks, and biological swarms using improvised defenses. Tomorrow they would master these technologies and create new ones. Zekthari began typing the report that would change how the galaxy viewed humanity. But each word felt inadequate to describe what the analyst had witnessed. The humans were not just dangerous. They were limitless. Zekthari stood before the Veltar High Council, holding the most important report the analyst had ever written. The council chamber's crystalline walls amplified every sound, making the silence feel heavy with expectation. "Speak," commanded Prime Analyst Velthok. "Tell us what you have learned about these humans." Zekthari activated the holographic display, showing battle footage from multiple encounters. The council members watched with growing unease as human forces tore through armies that should have destroyed them. "Honorable Council," Zekthari began, "I have observed this species for 6 months. I have witnessed them defeat the Corvin 7th Fleet, disrupt crystalline harmonics, resist psionic domination, and subvert swarm biology. Each victory defied established military doctrine." Council member Yextai leaned forward. "Surely they possess some hidden advantage. Advanced technology, telepathic abilities, natural weapons." "None of those," Zekthari replied. "Their technology is primitive by our standards. They have no telepathic abilities. Their physical forms are unremarkable, yet they continue to achieve impossible victories." The hologram showed human engineers converting mining equipment into weapons in real time. It displayed civilian pilots ramming military vessels without hesitation. It revealed scientists developing countermeasures to alien technologies they had never seen before. "Then what makes them dangerous?" asked Velthok. Zekthari paused, choosing words carefully. "Everything. They make everything dangerous. Every tool becomes a weapon. Every weakness becomes a strength. Every defeat becomes a lesson for future victory. The analyst activated another series of recordings. These showed human behavior between battles. Scientists sharing research data across their entire species within hours of making discoveries. Engineers improving designs based on combat feedback. Soldiers training in environments that simulated alien fighting styles. Watch how they learn, Zekthari said. After each encounter, they analyze everything that happened. They identify what worked and what failed. Then they share this knowledge with every other human instantly. Council member Krisvan spoke up. All species learn from experience. This is normal evolution. Not at this speed, Zekthari replied. Most species require generations to adapt. Humans adapt within days, sometimes within hours. They treat every battle as an experiment and every experiment as education. The display showed human settlements on dozens of worlds. Each colony looked different, adapted to local conditions with frightening speed. Humans living underwater had developed new breathing apparatus. Those on high-gravity worlds had modified their equipment for different conditions. Arctic settlers had created heating systems from scavenged alien technology. They do not just survive in new environments, Zekthari explained. They thrive. They take whatever they find and make it better. They improve on technologies that took other species millennia to develop. Prime Analyst Velthok's expression grew troubled. Are you saying they are smarter than other galactic species? Intelligence is not the right word, Zekthari answered. Many species are more intelligent. The ethereals have higher cognitive capacity. The builders create more sophisticated technology. The ancients possess greater knowledge. The analyst paused, searching for the right explanation. Humans are something else. They are adaptable beyond anything evolution should produce. They change themselves to fit any situation instead of changing the situation to fit them. New images appeared showing human diplomatic missions. Instead of demanding that other species accommodate human needs, the diplomats learned alien customs and adapted their behavior accordingly. They spoke in native languages, followed cultural protocols, and showed genuine interest in understanding different perspectives. Even their peaceful contact follows this pattern, Zekthari noted. They study us and adjust their approach based on what they learn. They do not force their ways upon others. They find ways to work within existing systems. Council member Yextai looked confused. That sounds reasonable, almost benevolent. Why do you present this as a threat? Zekthari felt the weight of the council's attention. This was the crucial moment. Either they would understand or they would dismiss the warning as paranoid overreaction. Because they are unlimited, the analyst said simply. Every other species has constraints. Physical limitations, technological barriers, cultural restrictions, evolutionary boundaries. Humans seem to have none. The display showed human children learning to use alien mathematics. Human artists creating works inspired by non-terrestrial aesthetic principles. Human athletes competing in sports designed for different body types. They absorb everything they encounter and make it part of themselves, not through conquest or domination, but through understanding and adaptation. They become more than they were by learning from everyone they meet. The council sat in thoughtful silence as the implications became clear. Today, they defeated our enemies using improvised weapons and desperate tactics, Zekthari continued. But they are already studying our technologies, our cultures, our ways of thinking. They are learning from species that have existed for millions of years. New footage showed human scientists working alongside ethereal researchers, human engineers collaborating with builder craftsmen, human historians studying ancient archives. What will they be like in 10 years? In 100? In 1,000? Zekthari asked. They will have absorbed the best knowledge from every civilization they encounter. They will have technologies we cannot imagine and capabilities we cannot predict. Prime Analyst Velthok nodded slowly. You believe they will surpass us all? I believe they already have in the ways that matter most, Zekthari replied. They have unlimited potential for growth. Every challenge makes them stronger. Every encounter teaches them something new. Every defeat becomes the foundation for future victory. The analyst activated one final recording. It showed a human exploration vessel approaching the galactic core, heading toward regions where ancient civilizations guarded secrets older than most species. This ship launched yesterday, Zekthari explained. Its name is UES Friendship. Its crew includes diplomats, scientists, and explorers. Its mission is peaceful contact with the elder races. Council member Krisvan leaned forward. And you find this threatening? I find it inevitable, Zekthari answered. The ship carries enough firepower to destroy a moon, but its crew genuinely hopes they will never need to use it. They want to learn from the elders, not fight them. The analyst looked directly at each council member. But if the elders attack that ship, the humans will not just defend themselves. They will study elder technology while fighting for their lives. They will adapt to weapons and tactics older than our civilization. They will learn from beings we consider gods. The chamber fell silent as the full implications settled in. And then, Zekthari concluded, they will come back and share what they learned with every other human in the galaxy. They will add elder knowledge to their own growing understanding. They will become something beyond our ability to comprehend or control. Prime Analyst Velthok stood slowly. What do you recommend? Zekthari had prepared for this question. The answer would determine how the Veltar approached humanity for generations to come. Do not fight them, the analyst said firmly. Fighting humans only makes them stronger. Do not try to control them. They will find ways around any restriction. Do not try to limit them. They will exceed any boundary we set. The council waited for the final recommendation. Work with them, Zekthari said. Learn from them as they learn from us. Become partners in their growth instead of obstacles to overcome, because they will grow regardless of what we do. The only question is whether we grow with them or get left behind. The analyst deactivated the display and faced the council one last time. The age of static civilizations is ending. The humans have shown us that adaptation and growth are more powerful than any weapon or technology. We can embrace this change or be swept away by it. As Zekthari left the chamber, one thought echoed in the analyst's mind. The true terror was not watching humans tear through armies. The terror was realizing that those victories were just their first tentative steps into a larger galaxy, and they were still learning how to walk.